That's all beyond us. But, you know, I have these unhappy thoughts in the back of my mind. But we've got to proceed with what we can with Singapore and keep it going. So for us, what are the alternatives? Wind, we got no wind. I've been to Papua New Guinea, and the winds blew all the time, Port Moresby. And on the mountains, it was tremendous. Well, we had that kind of a mountain around, and maybe 10-20% of our energy could come from this aeroplane-like blades. Tide, our tides are not that spectacular. We have no big rivers, no big estuaries. So that's off. Solar, yes. And as you know, the Norwegians are sinking Norwegian company is sinking $2 billion worth of investments to do a solar cell plant here and R&D. But how much can it supply? But whatever it is, we've got to try every little way to minimize the use of carbon fuels. The real alternative that can produce the electricity generation to match oil and gas is nuclear. But you know the rule is you must have the power station at least 30 kilometers away. You can put one end of the island, and what happens with the other end? So we've been thinking this thing through, and I said, okay, there's Horsburgh Lighthouse. It's more than 30 kilometers away. We reclaim land there and plonk it there. But then it's less than 30 kilometers away from the Malaysian coast, and they would be worried. So really, we are forced, eventually I hope our neighbors also come to the conclusion that we are forced to cooperate. If we understand the complexity and the immensity of the problems the world faces, and we will face in Southeast Asia, then we should have a common grid and a common pipeline so that it's transferable. But the prices of oil and gas and electricity between Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore are so different because they are subsidizing it. We are not. We are using the market to control the consumption of energy. So the prices of oil goes up, you drive less or you change into a smaller car. But in Malaysia, you know, they put the price up. They removed the subsidy and there was a howl of rage and they restored part of the subsidy. And in Indonesia, every time they remove the subsidy, there are riots. So these are problems which will take some time to resolve. And somehow we must find some way. Sooner or later, they'll come to the conclusion that we have already come to, that this problem can be better resolved if we have a common grid and common pipelines. I pose you this final problem on alternatives. I've been through this for many years because I'm on the board of Total for International Advisory Board since 1992. And we've gone through all the renewables. The fact is that all energy comes from the sun. So Primitive man cut wood, burn the wood to generate heat. And production of food was dependent on the sun, and population was then controlled because that was the maximum you could produce. But then came the Industrial Revolution. They went into coal, steam, machine age, and you broke through. Then the population rose, and people traveled the world. Then they found oil, and so that's more powerful. So they built battleships with oil. So you can read all these progressive improvements in Daniel Gergen's book about energy and oil. But we have, I believe, reaching the limits of what this planet can hold. We have to accept that we are all passengers on this one planet. And if we don't reduce this consumption of carbon energy, we are in serious trouble. The only alternative that frees us from this, coal means retain solar energy. Oil is also retained solar energy. Nuclear is not. Nuclear is what causes the sun to go around like that. So I was hoping this collider in Switzerland will produce some results and we say, we can now have technology that will free us from this need to depend on the sun for energy. But you know what happened after 4 days? They shut it down and got overheated. So I think there's a limit to what man's ingenuity can do. So let's just control our consumption. Keep it down. Try and keep population down. There are limits to growth. Let's live comfortably within the limits that this world can sustain. Now over to you.
Thank you, Minister Mentor.